Welcome in, Dween Nation. This is your host, Justin Paez, alongside Genoa Agudelo right over there. And how you doing today, Genoa?
I'm doing good, Justin. I'm wearing an Astros shirt, but we're currently losing to the Cubs, so I'm not too happy. But hey, it's draft week, so it eases off the pain, Justin, and I can forget about the pain of my Stros and the future of my Texans with those new jerseys.
Yes. So, guys, today's a big day because we're going to cover defense and the offensive line, which we have yet to cover in our draft rankings. All of it through. Obviously, we've knocked out wide receivers, running backs, quarterbacks, tight ends. So we're happy there. But we got to get the defense because that's a whole other side of the ball. But before we get into it, I have uh, a questionnaire or a challenge for you here, Genoa.
Okay.
Today was a big day for the Texans. They released some jerseys that we are very happy about. I want to ask you if you've gotten to look at all the jersey releases so far, which is like Denver, New York, and Detroit, and kind of rank them, and just tell me about the Texans because that's the one that's been the juiciest amongst the public.
Okay, so I'll rank them. The worst, the most disgusting looking jerseys were the Broncos. I hated them. Maybe if I squint my eyes a little bit, they look nice. And then at third place was the Jets. Not bad actually. With the new kind of fresh, clean look
They're just
there.
kind of, if you say so, it's a
Yeah,
little boring.
yeah.
Uh,
I don't think they did much though to change it. There was some jersey that they had last year that they wore that kind of looked similar to it. I don't think they made major adjustments there in New York. But then at number two is Detroit. I'm going to be biased there and put my Texans at number one. But I love what the Lions did. I love that black helmet, that bluish black helmet. That's going to be beautiful to see. I love how they chose Amon-Ra to be in that uniform. I felt like that was the right guy to be that model, to be the guy that reveals that New Jersey. And then number one, I'm gonna go with my Texans. I love those New Jerseys. I mean, everything about it, I love. Weirdly, I actually love the away jerseys that the Texans came out with. I just feel like it has that authentic look. In the past, it was all white with a little bit of red and a little bit of blue, but I think this one just adds more to it. I
yeah.
also love like the new like color rush jerseys, Justin, and even the battle red. I mean, the Texans just look decked out. I'm so excited for this season. So we look good, and I do like them at number one as far as the new jerseys that have come out.
They are definitely my number one if I had to rank it out. I mean, the helmet designs, they got to get whoever did that, they need a raise. I love the red Texans helmet. It was similar to a fan design of it. So I really liked that one. And then the H-Town blue, that was money. So Houston's on top of that design game. It only adds to a good off season for them, but now they get some good jerseys. I wanted to see CJ in a jersey. It was a
Yeah,
lot of Tank and Nico and Will Anderson, which is fine.
yeah,
But that was nice. And then the Broncos on the other side of being good, it was just boring. Their alternate jerseys were pretty nice.
yeah,
With the blue helmet, I'll get behind that one. But otherwise, they kind of just look like the Chicago Bears. Like it was kind of like that orange
yeah,
kind of around it. It's just boring. And then the Jets one's fine. It's not a game changer. Just kind of look kind of bland, kind of even. And then Detroit at two. They had some good ones. I like the Amon one. I feel bad though. I feel like some people were calling that black jersey like looked like the Panthers a little bit. You could
oh,
say that a little bit, but I still think they're pretty clean. And then yeah, Houston of course. But yeah, nothing's more fun for a fan too than a New Jersey. Except now you got to go buy a New Jersey. That's how the
yeah.
NFL is be making more money. But anyway, just some fun news before the draft. But yeah, all right. Well, we're gonna dive into the defense because there's a number of great talent here. Usually, defense is picked around the top of the draft, but this year's a little different. It seems like the top 5 to 7 picks are looking to be offense. It
Yeah.
was that way in our mock draft that we sent out yesterday.
Mhm.
Um, but for us, we're going to start with the edge rushers because those guys are going to be going in the top echelon of round one of day one, and we're going to start with our ranked number one guy, Dallas Turner, who we had going to the Falcons in our first mock draft. He's Alabama, so that already wants to sign off on being a really really good pedigree school to go to transition to the league. Obviously, last year their top edge rusher was Will Anderson. So good company to be in. And Will Anderson actually talked about him back around the combine. Was a lot of good notes about him, and he's kind of been touted as the highest potential guy at edge here. But what are your thoughts on Dallas Turner? I'm assuming you like the fit with Atlanta. Do you have any other spots you could possibly go and make an impact?
Well, Justin, now that we're hearing that maybe the Patriots want to trade out at 3, and now it gets very tricky on where, Dallas could go to. I have this weird feeling that maybe the Cardinals are like, we don't really want Marvin at number 4. And so maybe let's go with a guy like Dallas Turner. Maybe, a team like Washington feels like they don't need a quarterback, Justin. Maybe they want to replace what they lost with Chase Young. I don't think Dallas Turner really goes top 7. Really, it's like 8 and outside, 8 and later on in the first round. But hey, you look at Dallas Turner; he does have to build at 6'4". Justin, last year he had 10 sacks with a total of 53 tackles and 2 forced fumbles. So hey, college stats don't really they can have 4 to 5 sacks and still be a great player and still come out being one of the best out there. It's really just physicality. And how their build is and how healthy they are, especially a guy like Dallas Turner out of Alabama. One of Nick Saban's last, classes. So definitely want to, get one of these guys as best you can. Saban, players go a long way. So definitely like Dallas Turner there as, rated the number 1 defensive player in this year's draft.
Yeah. All in agreement there.
Yeah.
Moving on to 2 and 3. I'll lump these kind of together because I feel like they're going to go right around each other. First, though, is Latu from UCLA. And second, of course, for third overall would be Jared Verse from Florida State. But with Latu, a lot of people have questions about him because he was medically cleared, cleared that he would not be able to play football again when he was at Washington. Transfer to UCLA, is able to get back on the field and becomes an absolute monster. He's a really great talent that I've actually in our first mock draft you were pretty bullish on him. You had him going top 5. Obviously, I mean he's destined to be a top 20 pick, and just in the what was it, the Pac-12 this year, but he was just a phenomenal athlete. Was all around great. And then Jared Verse at Florida State, we must have watched a handful of his games. He's got a lot of energy. He's a little bit older than a guy like Dallas Turner, I believe, which that's what I've heard from people talking about how he's kind of going to be the most day one ready edge rusher. But other than that, he doesn't have the potential of the top 2 guys. But what are your thoughts with Latu and Jared Verse being, kind of that mid-first type of guy?
Well, with Latu, I mean, you look at his size, 6'5", 265 pounds. Justin, he had 13 sacks last year. I know, with them being in the Pac-12, we're not sure if the competition is all the way there, but hey, we did have somebody out of that, conference did make the Natty. So I guess you can say in that conference, Latu was able to dominate. And that's why, Justin, I had him going 4 in our mock. I just felt like, maybe the Cardinals, I don't think they're 100% in their offense. They're not committed in, giving Kyler, targets. They got rid of Hollywood Brown. So I feel like, this guy, Latu would be a guy that they could just add defensively and make them like a franchise piece, kind of like what the Texans did last year. I do think Latu is a tad bit better than Verse. I did think a month ago or 2 that I thought Verse was going to go in the second round. I don't think that's going to be the case. I do think he goes top 12, top 13. I wouldn't be surprised if a team like the Saints get him just because they want to add to their defense, even though they just signed Chase Young. But with Jared Verse here, I mean, another great guy, 6'4", 260, played with that, pretty great Florida State team. And these are, whatever pick you go here with Latu or Verse, I do think either way you're getting a solid edge rusher. Both of these players were in college football for about 2 to 3 years. I do think they're NFL ready. I don't think there's any waiting. And I think these are guys that you're going to be able to plug and play right into your defense. These are 2 really good, solid first rounders, and I'm so excited to see what defenses that they can join, Justin.
Yeah, I think they're going to fit right in and be starters day one, and that's what's exciting about those 2 guys. At number 4, we'll talk about a few more of these guys because there's there's a long list of edge rushers in this draft, but at 4 is kind of a guy that was a highlight of the NFL Combine. I think he ran the fastest edge time. It's Chop Robinson of Penn State, a smaller edge rusher for the normal viewer, but super quick off the edge. If you look at his stats, he isn't known as like a big stat guy. He's not getting you double-digit sacks, but he's just an impact type of player. That's why I like him a lot. And then also I'll throw in the next guy that I've had a lot of love for. His name is Darius Robinson out of Missouri, a huge standout at the Senior Bowl, which I know I sound like a broken record. I love Senior Bowl stars, but those two guys are kind of on that edge of first round, could end up in the second. But big fans of what they could do, going into the draft. They're gonna land on a team that hopefully, is in a good, has a good opportunity to make deep playoff runs. So exciting what they could do there. But yeah, what are your thoughts on those two guys?
Yeah, I do think they can go second round, especially with Robinson. But Justin, these are two plug and play guys that you can just add to your defense. So, I mean, looking at these edge rushers, we're pretty much loaded. With the first 7 edge rushers on this list could go between definitely first and second. I don't think guys, maybe like Braylon Trice might fall to the third. But definitely, these two guys that we just mentioned are going to go for sure. I don't know. What do you think with Robinson? I think he goes the second. And do you think was it Chop you mentioned? Chop Robinson?
Yeah, Chop and they're both Robinson guys. Yes.
Robinsons. Okay. I
Darius
do like Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say that Chop probably would go in the first round. Like the end, he could be a guy that a team trades up for with the last 3 picks. And Chop Robinson. Maybe a team like the 49ers can go ahead and get a guy like Chop Robinson. You look at they kind of just lost like a couple guys on their D line, and maybe you want to add somebody to go along with Nick Bosa and beef up that defense if the 49ers are not headed towards wide receiver in the first round. I do think with Darius Robertson, he's more of a day 2 guy. Kind of like the first 5 picks in round 2.
I think I really like that San Francisco idea because, for one, they need edge. They lost Chase Young to the what team did he go to? The Saints,
Yeah.
and so there's a spot there to be filled. And you could argue, hey, they could get him at 31, but if they're worried about like the Cardinals jumping and getting an edge rusher or Detroit adding one to be a sidekick to Aiden Hutchinson, they could trade Brandon Ayuk on draft night and move up, get a late first rounder. I know the talks of him going somewhere. That'd be interesting if they could replace him with that. Or, I mean, if they do a big trade for Ayuk, it could be for wide receiver. But they have options, so I like that one. But yeah, okay. And then the last 2 guys that we'll talk about here in our top list here, we got Chris Braswell, another Alabama talent, and Jonah Ellis out of Utah, who I'm not a huge fan of. He's smaller in height.
Yeah.
He ran a solid 40, and he's got good hands, but his height is low. His weight is in the 9th percentile, which is really bad. Not a ton of talent comes out of Utah at that defensive edge rusher position. So it leaves me worried there. But do you have any thoughts on Braswell? I know he's got that Alabama pedigree there too.
Yeah, with Braswell, he's one of the more underrated guys in this draft as far as defenders, Justin. I mean, a little less developed more than Dallas Turner would be. With 8 sacks last year, pretty good for Braswell. 6'3", he's a little bit smaller than most of these guys here. Weighs a little bit less. But hey, he's a guy that, you can get at the end of the second round, I believe, and be a steal and a pretty nice piece. And as far as Jonah Ellis, I mean, I do think he has potential. I do think that maybe he could have stayed another year in college. But, I think that he's more of a day 2 guy for sure. Round 3, round 4 guy that, I'm interested to see where he goes. Like I said, these edge rushers are absolutely loaded. So I'm curious to see which one is the best after next year. Jonah Ellis could be among one of them. But I guess it's a little bit too early to tell.
Yeah, for sure. time will tell where they land. I agree. Day 3, Chris Braswell could inch up there in day 2. Oh, so can Braylon Trice. We like Braylon Trice a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
He'd be a good talent there, but Ellis could drop. But yeah, okay. Moving on to the defensive tackle position. There's 2 guys that are kind of to me first round locks, or at least one is definitely a first round lock, and that is Byron Murphy II out of Texas. You look at his highlights; he is a monster in the interior. I know his teammate was T'Vondre Sweat, who was also a monster there. That helped for sure. But I think it's really important to see if T'Vondre is being talked about as a day 2 talent, but Byron Murphy's pretty locked into day 1. He's got good size. He's kind of ideal type, and I've been thinking about landing spots for him. I would love to see him in LA with the
Yeah.
Rams to replace Aaron Donald. That'd be sick. I've heard talks about the Saints. I've heard talks about the Raiders. So there's definitely a lot of spots for him. He fits in a lot of spots. When the Texans were a first round team, when they had a pick there, I thought that would be an ideal one for them. So
Yeah.
Byron Murphy's at a great spot. And that's same with Johnny Newton. A little bit smaller arms for him, but he's a really great player. I actually just did me, Genoa here, and his brothers. We're doing a little challenge for the draft where we're all going to make a first round mock and test it out against each other. And I had Johnny Newton going to the Bears, who trade back in it. So there's a lot of places for Johnny Newton as well. But yeah, give me your thoughts. What do the 2 guys mean to the draft?
So with Byron Murphy, I agree with you. I think he's a lock into LA because the Rams probably pick 20 to 21, Justin.
They picked 18.
18. Okay, so that's a lock. I think it's a no-brainer for the Rams to go Byron Murphy to replace Aaron Donald. But with T'Vondre Sweat, Justin, how about him going to the Texans and somewhat in the second round, Justin? Keep that guy in Texas. I don't think T'Vondre Sweat is not. He's not going to go in the first round for sure. But definitely, he's going to get a lot of eyes heading into the second round for sure. Teams like the Texans, teams like the Chargers, and even if the Rams don't go with Byron Murphy in the first round, they would definitely have their eyes on T'Vondre Sweat. So these 2 guys are definitely going to get a lot of love in the first 2 rounds. If Byron Murphy does not go first round, I will be absolutely surprised. But I do think he's a lock to go to LA.
Yeah. And I like how we're actually going to organize this more. I feel like maybe we should start. We should throw out some sleeper guys that we like here and some fades. Because Sweat, I like his talent a lot. He's humongous. I think he's one of the biggest players in this draft. I don't know if his spurt with the law. There was something that happened a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I don't think that'll impact his stock too much, or at least I hope not. I think it was a DUI. I don't want to speak for it. I'm not sure, but he's definitely a talent that will be day 2. Same with this other guy who was a combine favorite, Braden Fiske. He's one of my favorites out of Florida State. There, he's a big guy, 6'4", 290. He ran a 4.7. That's actually really fast for defensive end. Like guys like Johnny Newton, he ran a 4.9, and Byron Murphy ran a 4.87. So he's a faster guy, brings a lot of juice there, and that's why I like him. A guy I'm not a huge fan of at the defensive tackle position is Brandon Dorlus out of Oregon. I just haven't heard a lot from him. Watch him tape, like he looks good. It's nothing too special, and that's what leaves me a little questionable on where he could go. He'll be like a 3rd rounder, so it's not like so much stock's going into him like a Byron Murphy. But just looking at a couple guys I like versus dislike. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm not too excited for them, Justin. I actually feel like after Brandon Fiske, I think it just all goes down to being possibly undrafted. I could be wrong. With D tackles, Justin, you don't know what exactly you're going to get just because they're not, highly regarded as much as edge rushers are and linebackers. So with Fiske, I mean, Justin, I'm thinking 3rd round. I don't know if that's a stretch, though.
I think Fiske will land somewhere in day 2, hopefully in the second. A guy like Chris Jenkins, I'm a fan of.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he could be reconnected with Jim Harbaugh somewhere,
Yeah.
or somewhere in that day 2 rounds. Yeah, after guys like Michael Holland Rook from Clemson, I don't want to get that last name wrong. It really
Mhm.
falls off. Mason Smith, I'm not a huge fan of. McKinley Jackson, it hurts me because he's an Aggie, but he didn't have a great combine. Is a little shorter, which has me questioned there. But yeah, out of that, there's a handful of pretty good guys, but it doesn't beat it's kind of top heavy with Byron and Newton. But
Mhm.
yeah, okay, moving on to the linebacker position, which I am so excited to talk about. Edgerrin Cooper from my Texas A&M Aggies. He is a great talent. Got to meet him last week at A&M's Maroon and White game. Super nice guy. Excited for the draft. Excited for his next landing spot. I think he could be phenomenal. I'm really hoping he gets day one attention. A team like the Buccaneers, a team like the Cowboys. The Packers need a linebacker after cutting Devondre Campbell. So Edgerrin Cooper, he could be all over the map here, and he's got such a good burst. He reminds me of Bobby Wagner. He's just quick like it, and he attacks. And he carried this defense last year. Even though guys like Walter Nolan were on the team, he just was a commander of the defense, was a captain. So Edgerrin Cooper, I know I just went on a beautiful rant about him, but I'm all in on what he can do next year. And it's unbiased, I'm telling you, because you hear it from scouts and everything like that. A great guy, and just will be a great player for whatever team decides to pick him. But yeah, I also am hoping Houston can do something there. Then they got 2 second rounders. But yeah, give me your thoughts on what Cooper could do in the league.
I'm surprised, Justin, that he's not, mocked to go in first round. Some I've seen, some I haven't. But I would so go with him in the first round if I'm like Tampa Bay. Unfortunately, my Texans aren't picking. I would have loved to take Cooper. I don't think I don't think it's like an overdraft to take him in the first round. But if he goes second, to me, that's a steal, Justin. I know he went to A&M, but I'm seeing Von Miller. I'm sorry, I'm just seeing Von Miller. They're the same size, 6'3". They're both 6'3", Justin. I do think Cooper weighs about 20 pounds less than Miller does right now, but hey, he's a young boy coming out of college. I do think he can develop and grow and gain a lot of muscle. He just has the speed to me, Justin. He just has the force, to get by people. He's one of those, smaller guys that could put an offensive lineman on their butt, Justin. I do believe it. He's a first round talent, no doubt. He's very strong, and I just love him to play on all sides of the defense. Whether it's edge, you want to put him at linebacker, kind of like what the Cowboys do with Micah Parsons. He's a guy that can grow into his role and become a defensive star. I definitely like him already, Justin, to be one of the odds favorites for defensive rookie of the year. Wherever team he goes to, I'm penciling him as my top 3 choice in voting. Hopefully he plays a full season. But hey, I love this guy, and if he goes first round, I would be so happy.
That'd be really ideal if he could get there. I mean, this guy was in the 93rd percentile for 40 yards. He had 4.5. He's shorter. He's in only the 50s percentile in height, but he's got in the 90 percentiles in wingspan. So he's got some length, even though he's at a shorter build. So yeah, big fans of him. But I'm going to group these next 3 guys because I see them going in really similar spots. So we start with Peyton Wilson out of, I believe, NC State. Really good player. His only issues is his injury history. And then
Yeah.
Jeremiah Trotter from Clemson, son of former NFL player, and Junior Colson out of Michigan. 3 really solid talents that will go day 2, hopefully in the second round. But yeah, I'll defer to you on this one. What are your thoughts on these 3 guys?
So out of these 3 guys, Justin, I love Jeremiah Trotter the most. I feel like he's being one of the most slept on players of this draft. I honestly feel like he's gonna go second round wherever team he goes to. I have this feeling that Philly's gonna snag up and get him. I just feel like he's meant to be an Eagle. Trotter in that Eagles jersey would be so sick on that defense with that already stacked offense. With Peyton Wilson, there's some questions I have, Justin. I just feel like I feel like he's lacking a little bit mobility. I just feel like I don't think he's as strong enough to be at where he's positioned. I do think that he's a round 3 guy. I don't think he does go in the round 3. I think someone snags him at the end of the second. But I think he's more of a round 3, round 4 guy. I actually do like Junior Colson better, Justin. I just like the scheme he's been in the past couple years. He was one of those leaders on that defense that won it all this past year. So I like him a little bit better than I do Peyton Wilson. I'm not sure if you agree, Justin. What do you think?
So my thoughts with Peyton Wilson is he's got some serious speed. He was in the
Yeah.
98th percentile in 40-yard dash. And also this guy, he just kind of reminds me of a faster Leighton Vander
Yeah.
Esch. But the problem with Leighton Vander Esch in his career, which unfortunately he had to recently retire to,
Yeah.
is his injuries. And he's had a number of injuries so far, which could halt his draft stock a bit. With a guy like Trotter, I really like the Philadelphia Eagles landing spot. His dad obviously used to play there. So it could be a reuniting, a reunion of sorts, which
Yeah.
makes me excited with Trotter. And then with Colson, I mean, you play with Michigan, you play on a star-studded defense. Like they were the best amongst the best defenses, if not the best in the league. And he was a leader on that team. So really big fans of those guys. That's kind of where we'll stop with linebackers. Those kind of will be the day 1, day 2. Cedric Gray could jump into day 2. But those top 4, I think, will definitely land in there, and they're pretty good prospects. Moving to the secondary, we'll tackle this big group of really good cornerbacks because there is a handful of really good players. I foresee 5 different cornerbacks going in the first, and probably 5 more in the second, definitely 5 more in the second to third. We'll start at the top though here with the top 2 guys, Terrion Arnold out of Alabama and Quinyon Mitchell, and I have just glowing reviews over these guys. You get to watch them, and you're like, holy crap, they're really good. A guy like Terrion Arnold here. Okay, first off, the guy that had the spotlight obviously at first was Kool-Aid McKinstry. I mean, he's a
Mhm.
starter since his freshman year, which we'll talk about him in a second. But after a junior year of after Kool-Aid, has played for a couple of years, Terrion Arnold usurps him, becomes the cornerback 1.
Yeah.
He had a really great combine, really great interview with his mom, or for his mom, and just seems like a really good player for anybody in that 10 to 18 range. He's definitely going around there. And then with Quinyon Mitchell, Senior Bowl star. I'm going to say it 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. If you did good in the Senior Bowl, it's kind of a green light for a lot of these NFL teams. And Quinyon was the biggest star out of the secondary in the Senior Bowl. He comes from Toledo, which could be somebody's marking point against him, but he's been really good. He's a really great player, and he's going to translate pretty quickly. I'm a huge fan of him, and I've already heard rumors about the Eagles talking about trading up just for Quinyon Mitchell. You hear teams talking about trading up because they just want to trade up and they have a couple names in sight. The Eagles got Quinyon Mitchell and they need it. But yeah, huge fans of those 2 guys. Do you value one over the other, or you kind of like them around the same range?
Justin, I love my Bama guys. You know how much I love my Bama guys, especially like I mentioned, this is Saban's one of his last classes ever. But something about Mitchell just gives me like Sauce Gardner vibes a little bit, Justin.
Okay.
Just because we know we have some stars that have come out of the University of Cincinnati, but we haven't really had defensive stars come out of the University of Cincinnati. And Sauce Gardner was one of those guys. And I feel like Mitchell is kind of like one of those guys at a Toledo. You don't really hear a lot of players from Toledo, but this is one of those guys that you can't look over. I do think Mitchell is solid. He has the intangibles to become a top 5 cornerback wherever he's drafted. Kind of like that. Kind of like how Darrell Revis was as soon as he was drafted. Kind of like how Jalen Ramsey was as soon as he was drafted. Kind of has that swagger. Kind of has that edge. Kind of has that you can't really guard me even though I'm a rookie. So I do like Mitchell to become one of the better cornerbacks in the league, maybe after the end of this upcoming season. But I do love my Bama guys. I'm going to show them love. I love Terrion Arnold. He's going to be solid. And Kool-Aid, McKinstry Justin, has fallen off the mock drafts and the hype. I mean, like you've never seen before, Justin. I do remember going into last year. I mean, people were talking about he was going to get picked top 5. I mean, I saw mocks that were saying, oh, he's going to go to the Chargers or he's going to go to the Cardinals. But it's looking like, Justin, that he's going to be a day 2 guy in round 2. He might be one of the first names called on in round 2. I don't think so. I do think he still belongs in the round 1 talk, that tier 1 with all those players. But it's looking opposite, Justin. Maybe it's because he didn't have much to do this year. I don't think he had an interception. Barely had 25 solo tackles. So I think that's why. Personally, me, with some college students, they do perform high the first couple years, and they kind of see that next year. They don't declare for the draft, but they're still playing, and they kind of want to just step aside back and just keep their health ready. I know guys like Jamar Chase took their last year of college. They just skipped it. Didn't go to the draft, but they just didn't play college football the last year. Maybe that had something to do with the pandemic. But maybe that's something Kool-Aid kind of did mentally. Didn't really play much. But Bama's defense was still able to make the college football playoffs and was arguably a play away from stopping, tying it up with Michigan. And Kool-Aid, you can't sleep on him. Terrion Arnold is going to be another guy, Justin, that could be a top 5 corner. But I do think Mitchell instantly just has that impact. I don't know why. It's just something about him gives me those Sauce Gardner vibes where he gets drafted and all of a sudden he becomes one of those guys that you don't want to throw in that area, in that radius. And
yeah, no, I agree. Mitchell might be my favorite corner from the bunch, just because you just don't hear it as much. I'm hearing so much buzz about this guy. And similarly in a worse way with Kool-Aid, the opposite. Yeah, I've heard he didn't perform in the combine due to injury, so injury could be a little bit of concern. And then obviously he was the cornerback 1 for 2 years, and then Terrion Arnold showed up and usurped his position. So people are kind of worried that he didn't have as strong a season this year. And so that's where the issues stand. I have him still as a late first round guy. Early day 2, like it's kind of in that range, like picks 25 to like 40 kind of thing. But I still like him. He's a Bama guy, so there's that. And then another few guys, Cooper Dejean out of Iowa, the white corner. People aren't giving him as much credit as he deserves because he plays really well. He's a really good defender. And then a guy like Nate Wiggins, who's got some serious speed, sticks on you like glue, but people are scared because he's a smaller guy. I mean, he is short. I mean, or he's tall, but he's slender. And that's where injuries could creep in. But do you have any corners that you're kind of laying off of? Nate Wiggins is kind of my guy at the moment as we creep towards draft day.
Not really, Justin. Sometimes with the corners, they sort of develop to be really good if their draft stock isn't all the way there. I've seen it so many times with many different players over the past 15 years. I am a little bit alarmed with Cooper. I just feel like he seems like a smaller guy at 6'1". I'm not sure what to get from him at corner. I do think he fits a little bit as a safety, as weird as that sounds. Maybe that transition could be possible. But I do like guys like TJ Tampa that's being slept on just a tad bit. And with Nate Wiggins, I just feel like, yes, he might be a little undersized just a little bit, but he's very a speedy guy. I feel like he's a feistier guy, a guy that might be playing with a little bit more heart on his shoulder, on his sleeves, a little bit more to play for. So it's one of those guys that he gives you that Patrick Beverly energy in the football sense at corner. So I don't think you should sleep on Nate Wiggins just yet. If he gets taken in the 3rd round, to me, that's a steal for Nate Wiggins. With corners, you never know how far or how fast they fall. With the running back position, Justin, that they're going to fall for sure. But with Nate Wiggins, if he gets drafted the 2nd, 3rd, I think that's a great fit for him. And I do think he's a guy that can develop and in a couple years be one of those cornerbacks that you definitely have to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of convincing me here. I know he's got a talent, and I'm kind of stuck on the weight thing, which people can gain weight. I mean, people can get bigger. So Nate Wiggins, still a good talent at day 2, maybe late day 1, probably day 2 guy. And then these stretch of 3 day 2 guys that I'm interested in. You mentioned TJ Tampa. I got huge love for him as one of the last few corners that are, really viable to be good players at a more immediate impact in the NFL. And then guys like Kamari Lassiter and Ennis Rakestraw Jr., a guy from Missouri and a guy from Georgia. Obviously, Lassiter, the Georgia guy, he's a bigger guy. And then with Rakestraw, people are a little bit worried because I believe he didn't have an interception this season.
Yeah.
And they're like, how is that going to – but he just defends passes. He stays on his wide receiver. And, if you're not getting, targeted as much, maybe it's a thing that you're just playing really good cornerback. So I like all three of these guys. After it kind of falls off a little bit. I do like Mike Sainristil a little bit. But then like guys like Kyrie Jackson, Jarvis Brownlee, not on. Cam Hart is a good later round corner. But yeah, it's kind of a bunch of okay. No Kalen King. He's had a really bad past 6 months from Penn State. But there's a lot of good corners. If you're in the first and second round, you should be able to find a guy, which makes me excited. But are you a fan of any of those three guys? I know you mentioned TJ Tampa.
Yeah, I love TJ Tampa. I do think Cam Hart is a fantastic fourth round guy. If you can get him the fourth or fifth round, that could be a possibility. He's going to be a steal. Looking at a couple other guys, I just don't think so. I just think some of these guys, I'm not. I think it's more of a raw talent type thing. I just guess I got to wait and see where they go. But Kamari Lassiter is pretty good, Justin. The only thing is interesting is I don't think he's had an interception in 2 years, Justin. And I think that's the reason why he's fallen. Even guys like Ennis Rakestraw is as regarded better talent. And Nate Wiggins, even though we've talked about his size and his weight, I do think he's just better a talent than Kamari Lassiter. But you can make the argument that Georgia Bulldogs defense has been loaded for the past 3 to 4 years. So maybe everyone has gotten an interception, and it's tough for, I guess, so many players have gotten, it's tough for it all to go around on that defense with 11 players. But I'm looking at Kamari Lassiter. Maybe he's a guy that no one likes to throw to, and maybe that's why he doesn't get interceptions. Maybe guys like, Sauce and Jalen Ramsey, maybe don't get enough picks because, people are scared to throw in that area. You know what I mean? So that might be something to consider. But do like Cam Hart. And, it's pretty interesting how these corners will develop.
Yeah, and I'm looking at just a couple more things on these guys. With Rakestraw, he only had 2 interceptions in his entire college career. And unfortunately, he had 2 of his seasons kind of subsided by injuries. One where he missed most of the season, another one he missed 4 games. So hopefully there's no issues there. But yeah, okay. And then we're going to finish out our defensive rankings with safety. And there's 4 guys I want to talk about. I'm kind of just going to throw them all at you. Tyler Nubin out of Minnesota has gotten a lot of love. I think my most sleeper or just most underrated safety is Jaden Hicks from Washington State. And then a lot of people love Javon Bullard and even Cam Kinchens out of Miami. So 4 guys that are pretty good. They're all day 2 guys. I don't see any of them creeping into day 1. They could fall into day 3. But I'm a really big fan of Nubin. I've heard a lot about him going to the Packers. And then Cam Kinchens, I think he played 4 to 5 seasons with the Hurricanes. I got to watch him. He is an interception machine. People were very happy with what he could do. So yeah, do you have any thoughts on those 4 guys and if they can make a big impact?
Justin, the craziest thing is about ranking these safeties is they're all good, right? But wouldn't you believe me if I told you the worst one is probably the one out of Georgia with Bullard? I love Tyler Nubin. I think he has, that kind of just like Cam Chancellor feel. I think he can grow into that body. I love Cam Kinchens. You mentioned what he did at Miami. He's an interception machine. I mean, and I love Jaden Hicks. I mean, these guys, you can't go wrong when it comes to the safety position. These are 4 guys that are plug and play. And I'm not saying Javon Bullard is bad. I just think he's, probably the worst out of the 4. Because like I said, I love Nubin. I love Kinchens and Hicks. I mean, these guys are potentially going to be, one of the intercepting leaders in the next couple of years, Justin. And I'm so excited to see where they fall, especially with Nubin and Kinchens. I mean, if Kinchens can, these 2 guys could land in a team like Seattle, which, Jamal Adams just got released, and teams like maybe Pittsburgh where you can pair him up with Minka, and build that secondary up. Maybe with my Texans to go along with Petrie and Stingley. So these, especially Nubin, Kinchens, and Hicks, I'm so excited to see where they go. They have tremendous talent as a secondary. I don't think it gets any better than this. So hey, I'm excited to see where they go, man. I'm really excited to see where these safeties go.
Definitely, you give me hype for it.
Yeah,
I like the take with Bullard. There has been some concerns there,
yeah,
but that wraps up safety. Not a super deep class, but what is a pretty deep class this year is the offensive tackle position. A lot of first round grades, for these guys. I'm just going to list them out here. Guys I really like, obviously, Joe Olt's going in the top 10.
hmm
Olu Fashanu and Talizi Fuaga and JC Latham kind of will end up around the same range. Olu, I remember, after, this draft happens, they always do like an early next year draft. And
hmm
last year when they were doing it, they were talking about Olu, and like he could have been in this past year's draft and still would have been a top 10 pick. He falls a little bit further. It looks like he's going to be a teens type of pick. I think that's some injury concern there. He had a recent injury, but he's got a really good build, and I think he's going to hit pretty easily, to whatever team he makes it for. And then Talizi Fuaga, I was hearing Jets for a long time. He's got smaller arms, but he's just a really good talent of Oregon State, which makes it really exciting to see where he can land. He's a plug and play guy too. And then Latham, if you listen to Mel Kiper Jr., Mel Kiper
yeah.
Jr. is the biggest fan of J.C. Latham. He had him top 5 in one of his mocks a month ago. So Latham's got some serious talent, and obviously he went to Bama. So he's got some serious pedigree. And then actually, let me throw in one more guy with them in Troy Fautanu, who we're big fans of here. We had him
Yeah.
going pretty solidly high in our mock draft. But yeah, give me your thoughts on some of these guys around here.
Yeah, Justin, in this draft, it's going to be interesting to see because these offensive linemen are all with Alt, Fashanu, Falga, and even Mims out of Georgia to go along
Yeah.
with Barton. These are going to be guys that are going to be looking at right immediately after the first two quarterbacks are picked. These are going to be the reason why, players like Neighbors might not get picked till, 8 or 7 in the first round. Maybe guys like Cooper is the reason why he's not mocked to go first. Maybe it might be a reason why a guy like Dallas Turner falls right at the end of the first because Joe Alt is amazing and Olu Fashanu is amazing and Talise Faga, he is a guy that you're gonna want to have to back up, to have your quarterbacks back, So with Joe Alt as well, these guys are all probably gonna go in the first 15, it's going to give teams, it's going to make teams hesitant, Justin. Should we go with that quarterback? New England might be like, hey, let's trade out of this spot and just get an offensive lineman. Hey, we don't really know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Teams like that. And so that's going to be the reason why this first 10 picks are going to be a little clustered because this offensive lineman class is pretty good. It goes down all the way to Patrick Paul and my guy at U of H, who probably won't go in the first round, but that's how deep this list is for linemen. So these quarterbacks are about to be very happy to get these guys to be blocking for them for the next 5 to 6, 7, 10 years.
And I love that we're giving juice into this because, like, I'm going to make a little quick PSA. Uh, expect a lot of O linemen to go in the first round and the
Yeah,
second round.
yeah,
It's not a boring pick. Like, it's huge for teams, especially like if you look at teams like last year, like the Jets. Like, even though they had crappy Zach Wilson, it's because that O line was dog crap that it just made
yeah.
it unbearable. So like some big O line pieces it could help these, younger quarterbacks or, pocket passers. That's what hurt Justin Fields for a while. He had no O-line and
And
had to run
Burrow,
around all the time. So, yeah, that's why I think that, these O-line picks, and it's a deep O-line class,
yeah,
which makes it really exciting. This guy that kind of mixes into the interior as well as the outside is Graham Barton out of Duke. He could play literally across the entire offensive line. He's got tackle potential, guard potential, and center potential, which makes him, to me, an ideal piece for a top 20, top 25 pick. That's why I love Graham Barton. A guy that's going much later than or just not being talked about a lot. His name is Roger Rosengarten out of Washington. All the news is going towards Troy Fautanu, but I really think Rosengarten is like my sleeper. He kind of fits that sleeper ideal pick for teams. And then more on the interior, a lot of people were giving love earlier in the offseason to Jackson Powers Johnson.
Mhm.
I think he's had some injury concerns as of recent. That's why he's dropped a bit. But I think he could land in the first. And then I know we like Chris Haynes out of UConn, really good guard. And same with Zach Frazier. But man, I'm just like going. Oh, Cooper Beebe. I'll let you talk about some of those guys. But yeah, some serious
Yeah.
talent in the draft.
No, yeah. First of all, I want to comment on your take here. Offensive lineman picks aren't boring in the first round, you know, of the draft because you look at teams like Cincinnati, which if they had a good offensive line, we'd be able to see Joe Burrow more. We'd be able to see, great Jamar Chase moments and a lot of fantasy points, right? Even a couple years ago, many years ago, the Cowboys, there was the draft where Johnny Manziel was in. And what did they do? They went with the offensive lineman. And they did that the next year and the next year. And you know what? The Cowboys were so much fun to watch with that offensive line. They had guys like Ezekiel Elliott had, top fantasy seasons, and DeMarco Murray, Justin had top fantasy seasons. And then, you look at what, the Colts were able to do, towards the end of Andrew Luck's career, they did get him an offensive line, and had a pretty decent team when, Luck was getting sacked over and over and over. And people were saying, oh my God, his career is going to be short. And that was, the tragedy of what was in Indianapolis. So, definitely don't undermine the first round picks, it being offensive line. That actually makes things a lot fun. And, looking at these guards, man, I love Chris Haynes out of UConn. He's going to be a guy that is a strong second round pick guy. And Cooper Beebe, too. I think, some mocks do have him kind of like in the beginning of the third. I think he's a guy that you should take off in the second. I do think Jackson Powers Johnson, has the potential to go first round. We're looking at 5 to 6 linemen in the first round. I do think he belongs in that tier 1. He is the top guard. Everybody else, with Alt and JC Latham and Fautanu and Fuaga, they're all, tackles. So maybe if, a teams want to get stronger in the interior, I do think Jackson Powers Johnson is the guy in the first round to go to. Chris Haynes as well. I do think he goes second. Graham Barton as well. I mean, these are two guys that with Barton and Johnson that can go in the first round just because the guards are a little bit limited. But Chris Haynes, if it was up to me, I'd take him in the first round towards the end with between picks, 23 up until the end. But you can never go wrong with the lineman, Justin. Teams that are paying up in the future for the quarterbacks, like the Texans, and maybe Carolina here pretty soon. I know Bryce Young did get a contract for the next couple of years. Maybe a team like AR, you look, or the Colts, I mean, with AR, he gets hurt. I know he got hurt running outside of the tackles. But there's many. I mean, it's so interesting, Justin. I'm counting. Let's see, 1, 2 with guards, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 strong linemen that you can go in the first round that are not bad picks at all. If you have your franchise quarterback are ready for the future, I mean, these are guys that you can't go wrong with.
Yeah, that you said it perfectly. O linemen are the building blocks of an offense, so definitely some nice pieces there. You mentioned Patrick Paul. We didn't mention Tyler Guyton and Jordan Morgan and Kingsley Suamatia
I
and
mean,
Kieran Emmett. Oh my God, there's a number of good guys. So if your team needs an O lineman, hopefully they decide to divert some picks for that. But yeah, wow, we just zoomed through the whole defense and offensive line. Uh, some people might say it's not the prettiest position, it's not the biggest fantasy impacts because we don't draft individual defensive players and O linemen, but they're the names that should be regarded highly because they make some serious impacts to offenses and, of course, the entire defense. So we are wrapping up. But yeah, this is our last episode before the NFL draft on Thursday. Check out our TikTok. We're sending these clips in. Obviously, if you're watching here, you got to see the full thing. But yes, like, subscribe, share, comment. Check out the YouTube. Keep staying tuned with us because we got draft coverage right after the draft. just really excited for Thursday. It's going to be really good. Check out the mock. Hopefully we are, 100% on that one. Probably not going to happen. But thanks for listening, guys. Genoa, another great podcast in the books with you, my brother.
Yes,
And
sir.
send us out.
Dwee Nation, this is the last episode from the draft. So next time we are on here, we will have full results of round 1. And man, Justin, that's going to be a conversation for the books to see where these linemen go and just every offensive player, every defensive player, what trades are made. In some situations, some will be determined for the future of the NFL. And Dwee Nation, we love you guys. And as always, peace.
Peace.